Roy Nelson, and we're happy for those who may be viewing this later. We don't seem to have anyone on right now at this moment, but we imagine that people will be viewing this at a later time. I will be responding to a couple of questions that were posted in this chat forum for today, but I also wanted to introduce one of our teaching assistants. As you know, we have two teaching assistants, Mary Grace Richardson and Devika, and we have with us today Devika. And so here's Devika, and Devika, could you move over, scoot over a little more so everyone can see you?
Hello.
And so Devika will be responding to questions and making some comments herself, introducing herself. Would you like to introduce yourself, Devika?
So I'm Devika. I am a second-year student. I'm in my final semester at the Thunderbird School of Global Management. I'm pursuing my master's in global management, and I graduate in December. I am here to welcome all of you into this course and looking forward to spending the next 6 weeks or so in this journey with all of you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Devika. And Devika and Mary Grace Richardson are both so great about responding to any questions or comments you have. And of course, I will be stepping in from time to time as well. But they are so thorough and so knowledgeable, and they've been through this entire course. They've taken the course themselves as students, and now they are, of course, they've been through this process already once, and so they're very knowledgeable about this. So I wanted to say just a couple of things. We are still in week 1, and so everything, week 1 and week 2, assignments, all of that is going to be due on September 11th. And so that's a very important point to make, that because of the sheer numbers involved in these kinds of courses, we have to be very strict. There are very, strict guidelines about deadlines and so on. And so it's very important that everyone respect that deadline. If you want to submit that assignment, those assignments for week 1 and 2, all of that is due on September 11th. So you still have time to finish up week 1 and week 2, but everything is due on September 11th, which is a Monday. And so that's very important. And the reflection paper, that will, well, no, I'm sorry, we're talking about the research paper now.
The research paper is
Yes.
after the reflection paper.
That is after the reflection paper, and that will open up and be available to you, the more details and instructions about that on September 11th. But essentially what that involves is applying the 3 views.
That's right.
To a current development, a current event, an issue, or an organization. There'll be more details and instructions in the guidelines when you see that on September 11th, but that will be applying the 3 views to some current issue, current development, current trend in your own country, whatever country that might be. So now, did you have anything else to say? Maybe you would like to say something about the research paper.
Yes, so the research...
Some past examples maybe of students that did a good research paper. I think we had some really good ones that we were really impressed by last time.
Yes, I think a lot of students applied the 3 worldviews to certain situations that were happening in their country. For example, students from India, demonetization was a big thing back in December 2016. And so a lot of students from that part of the country, and not even from India, kind of selected that topic and tried to apply the
Sure.
3 different views. So that's something I can absolutely think of my mind now.
And you don't have to be from that
You don't
country
have
to
yes.
apply the 3 views to a topic that's of great interest to you. For example, if you're from the United States, you could talk about demonetization in India and apply
Absolutely.
the 3 views to explain that.
And NAFTA was a very favorite amongst all the students who were doing the research paper, because that was something which was quite prominent and
Right,
prevailing
right.
at the situation of NAFTA during the time when the first course was running. So a lot of students spoke about.
And NAFTA
their
is
views.
still very much a
Yes.
prominent issue, right? And the 3 views, I think, are very relevant to NAFTA, because we've had a lot of discussion about NAFTA from the economic nationalist perspective, not only in the United States, but also in Mexico. And one of the leading presidential candidates in Mexico, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, is very much an economic nationalist in his views toward NAFTA. The President of the United States has expressed economic nationalist views with regard to NAFTA. But currently there are negotiations going on between the US, Mexico, and Canada on NAFTA. So that would be a very interesting application of the three views to the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. That would be great.
And I believe that there's still so much of hue-cry, because first there were talks of, absolutely getting done with NAFTA, and then suddenly the president said that, okay, we'll kind of go on with it, but we'll make a few amendments. And then I think last week again there was some revision. So I don't know, probably nationalists are thinking they're doing it for the country, but in the long run, I don't think it has a positive impact, because NAFTA is very important in terms of creating job opportunities in the country.
Well, she sounds like a liberal, right? That sounds like a liberal point of view I'm hearing there, right? So in this course, we tend to look at things from all of the three major worldviews, right? We see it from the liberal perspective, the economic nationalist perspective, the structuralist perspective. So we're open to looking at it from all different angles, and that's really the point of that exercise. But again, that is the research paper. That won't even be available really to you. The instructions and guidelines, you can look at that, but we're not really expecting you to start that until September 11th, after September 11th, because you have some work to do for weeks 1 and 2. All of that is due by September 11th itself. And so that's an important date.
And also when the research papers come in, like we recommended on the discussion board, that if there are any topics that you have in mind, feel free to share those topics and get Dr. Nelson's view on them, because you may be having a couple of topics that you would want to share with us in your research paper. So it's always nice to just get onto the discussion board, post those topics, get our views on it before you actually invest your time in writing the research paper.
Right. And so students have asked, would this be a good topic? And we might say, maybe you want to modify it a little bit or change it slightly, or what about this other aspect of it? So that's a great use of the discussion board, is to ask and get our feedback on that. So that's excellent. That would be a good way to use that. Let's see. Can you think of anything else that has come up in the last time we taught this course? I think sometimes some questions come up again and again, right? It tends to often be the same question. So this could sort of be an FAQ, frequently asked questions forum here. So can you think of anything else right now, Devika, that came up frequently?
I think about the research paper, like when you have topics posted every week, 3 topics that are meant for all of you students to discuss on. So out there, there was a confusion whether they have to give all their 3 views or whether they just need to stick to 1 view. So students, generally would go and try and explain all 3 worldviews, wherein that was not required. That is required for a research paper when you select a topic.
That's for the research paper.
But right? The weekly discussion topics is just stick to 1 view.
Right. So the weekly discussion topics, I mean, those are more specific questions. And so again, in that weekly discussion, we're not talking here about the reflection paper. We're talking just about the discussion post, which is an optional thing, is not graded. Right, but that always, I think, enhances the experience if you're participating in the discussion. So there are discussion questions posted every week, and so I think that's a great way to be more involved in the course.
Yes, like you already have 3 topics which have been posted. So I
have them right here, and I'm going to respond to them right now.
And I encourage all of you to get onto the discussion forums, because it's not all about just expressing your views, but it's about learning from what people have to say about the same topic. So there's a topic posted on the discussion board, and you may be giving a nationalist or a structuralist view to that particular topic that has been posted, and I may be giving.
I am giving. No.
In the sense, you as a student,
okay, yes.
And I as a student, I may be giving a different view. So imagine everybody coming in and expressing their views. There's just so much that you can learn from just those discussion forums.
Yes. And as we know, I am eclectic, right? So I pick and choose among the 3 worldviews. I apply them. I use them as tools to explain. So sometimes I may use the structuralist point of view. Sometimes I may use the economic nationalist point of view or the liberal view. And so we do have some interesting comments that people have posted here on the discussion forum. And so I thought maybe I could respond to those. But before we get to that, I'm just wondering if there are any other sorts of issues that have come up frequently. I'm trying to think from back last time.
So I think the discussion forum that we would be monitoring would be more specific and relevant to the course of the 6 weeks. If students, like it has been explained, if they have any, since this course is being offered through Thunderbird School, so there are a lot of students who would like to maybe know about the credits and how they can use the credits relevant to the courses they take.
Okay, well, those very specific kinds of questions, those you can post them on the discussion forum, and they will be answered very promptly by either Devika or the other TA, Mary.
So this is the change that we've done this time, because we were getting those questions.
You set up a separate forum.
So there's a separate discussion board, which
right.
And admission specialists from the school would be monitoring that discussion board. So when you log on to the discussion forum, you'll see 2 separate discussion boards. So if you have anything specific to the courses, credits, the school,
that sort of thing, then you don't have to answer. Then we turn it to the experts from Thunderbird School of Global Management, the admission specialists, right? Okay, so that's good. That's a great change. Thank you.
It becomes easier for them also, and you have specialists answering those questions.
Right.
So that's something just to clarify the students, so they don't have to get confused about.
Okay, that's good. That's good, because our focus, as professors and teaching assistants, is on the content of the course, and so that's what we're focused on, not so much these other important questions. Of course, how can I use this credit to get enrolled in Thunderbird School of Global Management? That's a crucially important question, but we'll turn that over to the experts, to the specialists on that. So, okay, well, let's now get into this content, and there are some interesting questions or comments that were posted in relation to the material for week 1 already. And so this first question, I think, is very interesting. Maybe I could just read it to summarize. Oh, maybe you can read it. You can read it, and then I'll try to answer it. So the first question that we got was that the Walmart video has been posted for all of you in the first week. So in the Walmart video, one of the interviewees made the general claim. By the way, I like that video because it is looking at this very important issue, right, of Walmart encouraging its suppliers to outsource, or we could say offshore, move their manufacturing to other countries, and specifically to China. And so Walmart is trying to find ways to drastically reduce the cost so they can pass on the savings to the consumers. So they tell the suppliers, move your manufacturing processes out of the United States to a lower cost location, in this case, China. And so that's basically what that video is about. Now, this specific question says that one of the interviewers in the video makes a general claim that trade flows, in quotations, don't have an effect on overall employment numbers, and seems to also be saying that specifically regarding the US jobs eliminated because of Chinese competition are therefore equal to fewer than the US jobs created because of Chinese competition. So the student is a bit confused by this logic and was wondering if you agree with it. Okay, and so I think I remember this very well from the video, because trade flows don't have an effect on overall employment numbers, and seems also to be saying that specifically regarding the US jobs eliminated because of Chinese competition are therefore equal to or fewer than US jobs created because of Chinese competition. So, and this student is saying, it seems a rather enormous claim that trade doesn't have an effect on employment numbers. It seems that employment numbers are constantly fluctuating and the trade has a huge impact. China's employment numbers seem to have increased significantly over the past 20 years, for example. So I think that's a really interesting aspect to that. I think what I recall from the video is, remember, this video provides us an opportunity to apply all 3 views to this issue. Walmart encouraging its suppliers to pick up their manufacturing operations, move them out of the United States, and move them to China, right? And so clearly an economic nationalist would say this is a terrible development because we are losing jobs and they're going to China. It's a win-lose. China's winning, the United States is losing. And so I think a liberal might say, well, maybe that's how it is. You let free market forces prevail. And if there are lower costs to be found in China, then manufacturers are certainly, they should move to China, right? And that would be fine. That would keep their companies competitive. That would help Walmart reduce its costs. That would pass on savings to consumers. Consumers could then spend more money on other things. And so the bottom line is a liberal might say the net result of all this is a wash, right? So that new jobs might be created. Consumers save money. They place money in other areas of the economy. That creates jobs in those areas of the economy. And so yes, some specific jobs, low-cost, low-skilled manufacturing jobs that can easily be outsourced or offshore to China, those will be lost in the United States. But you notice that other jobs are being created, right? The economy remains highly competitive. Apple is, hiring more engineers and new research and development people and design experts and marketing people. So yeah, maybe the low-cost, low-skilled jobs are gone, but then you have different kinds of jobs, and maybe those are the jobs we want to emphasize and encourage to stay here in the United States. And we aren't so concerned, overall about the loss of certain kinds of jobs because other jobs will be created as this economy remains competitive and successful. And so I think that's how a liberal would see it. And yes, the people who lose their job will be very, very affected in a very negative way, of course. But is it the proper role of government to stop this process completely, to put up protectionist tariffs, to stop the imports from China, to encourage companies, even at very high cost, to manufacture in the United States? I think a liberal would say that would be a mistake, right? And so they would disagree with the economic nationalist, automatic response. Let's put up protectionist tariffs. And I think what is interesting is the video itself seems to have, I would say, a particular worldview in this video. Would you say that there is a worldview? I think it's pretty clear that there is.
I think it is I would say that it's probably liberal. I wouldn't call it.
The worldview of the video?
No, that's my view.
Oh, no. I mean, to me, it seems like the narrator, right, is so disgusted, yes, so frustrated by the jobs being lost in the United States.
So that's a complete nationalist view.
It's very much, to me, this video seems to be from an economic nationalist point of view.
Yes.
And so what is their solution? Well, I guess you would say, let's not let these jobs be outsourced to China. Let's put up tariffs or something like that.
That's what an economic nationalist would say.
That's what an economic nationalist would say.
Yes. But as you rightly mentioned, if you look at the bigger picture, it's not about those jobs being lost to China, but about the other opportunities that are also being created in return.
Well, that's what a liberal would say, right?
Yes. But a nationalist...
There's a liberal right there. Yes. I think that's... So I think that might be from the liberal
point perspective, but the video kind of just focused on the economic nationalist viewpoint.
So a liberal would say, yes, jobs in certain segments of the economy, certain sectors, certain kinds of jobs will be lost if you open yourself up to free trade. But at the same time, because the economy remains competitive, because companies are now going to have the ability to save money in certain areas on low-cost, low-skilled manufacturing, they can invest in other areas, research and development, marketing, and that'll create jobs, right? And so in the end, it's a wash. That's what I think the specific term that one of the liberal analysts in the video that was interviewed said. Now, even some liberals, though, might be concerned in some ways, because they might say, wait a minute, is it really free trade or fair trade to have this process happen? Because we know that for many, many years, not anymore, it stopped a few years ago, but China for years was not letting the free market forces prevail. They were purposely interfering in the market by printing a lot of their local Chinese currency, increasing the supply of their currency, keep causing it to be very weak in value. And that made Chinese products cheaper when you exported them to countries with stronger currencies, because your products are priced in terms of your own currency. And if it now, because you've increased the supply of currency, the currency has been devalued, well, of course it's going to be easier for you to export your products. people in countries with strong, stable currencies now can buy more of these products. They don't need as much of their own money to buy those products. The products are going to seem cheaper. And so, of course, now the cheap imports are going to flood in from China.
Right.
And that is not fair, right? That is government interference.
Yes.
And so an embedded liberal would say there are actions that a government can take.
If the situation so extreme liberal would probably want no government
would say
intervention.
no government intervention, but
yes.
Look, here the government of China has interfered, and and so an embedded liberals say there are times when the government of the United States could take action.
Yes, that's what.
And actually in the video, I don't know if you saw toward the end of the video, there was, I think it was I've seen this video 15 times.
Right.
5 Rivers Electronics, a small company, I think in Tennessee.
Yes.
Did you see what they did? They took action. They made big TV sets, flat panel TV sets, and they said, we're being killed by all this imports from China. And at that time, the Chinese government was still interfering with the exchange rate, manipulating the currency, keeping it weak. And so 5 Rivers Electronics, this company making TVs in China, in the United States, couldn't compete, all the flood of imports coming in, cheap. So what 5 Rivers Electronics did is they filed a case with the U.S. International Trade Commission. And so the U.S. International Trade Commission will evaluate, have any rules been violated, have any trade agreements been, and so they would see, gee, this is sort of like dumping. They're selling below market costs. And so the U.S. government has some ways to respond to that. There are anti-dumping and countervailing duties laws built into U.S. trade laws.
Yes. And
if you take action, the U.S. government could take action and say this is not fair. And so that a liberal would say that's the proper role of government, to make sure that the rules are being followed.
So that would be an embedded liberal view.
And that would be an embedded liberal response. It's not the government putting up protectionist tariff just across the board, looking out for, it's saying if we see a specific interference in the market mechanism,
right,
then that is the proper role of government to take action against that.
So basically the government should step in when...
In a very limited way,
yes,
in a very precise, if there is a rule that is violated that is going to interfere with the effectiveness of market forces,
right,
as seemed to be happening in this case, that would be the proper role of government. Not just across the board tariff increase, no, we're not going to allow any outsourcing or offshoring, but a very limited, selective use of government intervention just to make sure the market forces continue to work properly.
Right.
Not to interfere with the market. So what the Chinese government was doing was economic nationalist action, government intervention, purposely to interfere with the market forces. And so an embedded liberal response would be, we're going to take action to make sure that doesn't happen. And so what the U.S. International Trade Commission determined was that yes, there was some dumping, it was unfair, and we're going to allow the U.S. government to increase tariffs on specific companies that are engaged in just selling below market costs. And so that's one way you could deal with that, right? So,
yes.
So another way would be to go to the World Trade Organization.
Right, and seek their intervention.
And to seek their intervention. And we're going to talk about that organization later in this course.
Through the WTO, I think they touch on that in the 3rd week or so.
We get into that later in the course. I think it's week 5.
Oh, that's week 5. Yes.
Yeah. So that would be. So anyway, a liberal though would say in general, yes, some jobs might be lost to free trade, but and there might be times when jobs are being lost unfairly, and then the government can take action. But overall, a liberal might say there are times when it's okay to let jobs disappear. Maybe the United States doesn't have a comparative advantage in low-cost, low-skilled manufacturing. Let that go. And let's focus on things where we do have a comparative advantage, where the market forces do encourage us to succeed, like high-tech,
the service industry,
more sophisticated services.
Yes.
Low-cost, low-skilled manufacturing, that's not our forte. That's not our. And
then we have to see what this job displacement is causing to the consumers also. I think the consumers also have a benefit in it. You're getting the same products if they're manufactured in US itself. The same product, if not half, you'll get it at a much lesser cost. So you have to see all those perspectives. It's not just about job displacement.
And that would keep the U.S. economy more competitive. Offshore,
Yes.
send it to the manufacturing, low-cost, low-skilled manufacturing elsewhere.
Right.
Import those products at lower cost, and then that saves consumers. The consumers then spend more money on other things. They can buy a fancy iPhone.
Yes. And use your skilled labor in other industries like the service industry or some high-tech industries.
Yeah.
Why use them for such a low skilled?
Right. Yeah. Now, it's easy for us to say if our job isn't lost due to trade. Now,
right.
The embedded liberals have an answer for this too, though. They say if you lose your job specifically due to trade, there is in the US government, for example, and most countries have something similar, trade adjustment assistance. You know, if you can prove my job was lost or this company went bankrupt because of trade agreements, then the government will step in and pay for some retraining for workers that can specifically prove they lost their job to that. So that may be small, you know,
ways of
consolation
yes.
for somebody that loses his or her job, but that's an embedded liberal response to this problem. It's different from putting up protectionist tariffs, interfering with the market forces. Liberals would say that will lead you to loss of competitiveness, that'll lead your economy to stagnation and problems. So I think that there are different ways of looking at this issue.
How about a structuralist? Would they think it's just the people from the upper class just looking into their own interests, and because of that, it's eventually people in the bottom of the pyramid who are suffering, and they're the ones who are losing their jobs?
Exactly. So the structuralists would say, look at this. You see what happened? The U.S. government does whatever big corporations want. So the U.S. government pushed for this, you know, freer trade with China.
Right.
They pushed for China. They said, "Yo, yes, China should be a member of the World Trade Organization. We should have minimal reduction of tariffs with China." And the big corporations were behind that. Corporations like Walmart, right? And so these big corporations, they don't care in a capitalist country. They don't care about the workers in their own country or the workers that they're going to go off and encourage their suppliers to exploit in China at very low wages. And so the workers are the ones that get hurt. But the big corporations, Walmart makes a bigger profit.
Yes.
And the U.S. government did this because they are responsive to the interests of big corporations.
Right.
That would be the structuralist view of how capitalist countries work. And if you look who was behind freeing up, making more agreements with China, who was pushing for that in the 1990s, it was Bill Clinton. You notice Bill Clinton was from Arkansas. His wife, Hillary Clinton, when he was governor of Arkansas, was on the board of Walmart, which has its headquarters in Arkansas. So you could, a structuralist would say, look, clearly the government was doing all this, making these agreements with China to serve the corporate interests of big companies like Walmart,
right,
and not caring about the working people.
And then US has its hegemon, so the theory of hegemon also comes in. So in the structuralist view,
well, of course, the hegemonic stability theory, right? That's an outgrowth of the economic nationalist view. So, I mean, you could definitely look at this in a lot of ways, but the liberals would say, "Oh, it's a win-win. It's good.
Right.
All can benefit." But the embedded liberals would say, "Yes, but we're going to monitor and make sure that the rules are being followed and that the market is working." So I think that's there's a lot you can pull out of that video.
Yes, it's a good 40 minutes video or so.
Yeah,
there's just so much you can learn.
It's a great lesson.
Yes.
Yeah, I try to show that to my students,
okay,
so they can see that. So, but there's a second part of this question: how can we say that the money U.S. consumers save by purchasing cheap goods is then used to create U.S. jobs? Who's to say that money isn't used to buy goods from India or Mexico, which means more jobs created in India or Mexico, not the US? Well, there you go. But a liberal would say, let the consumer decide for himself or herself where he wants to spend his or her money. Let the free market force decide, and that things will take care of themselves. Companies have to compete with other companies in India and China and maybe in the United States. The low-cost, low-skilled kinds of companies that rely on that, they aren't going to be manufacturing in the United States anymore. And so what is going to happen is the United States is going to specialize in high value-added kinds of jobs, research and development and marketing and things that require a college education or an MBA from Thunderbird.
Yes.
High-paying jobs.
Yes. Highly skilled jobs.
I'm sure anyone watching this video would not want to work on an assembly line in a factory.
Yes, if you're watching this video, you definitely
wouldn't. We'll outsource that to somewhere else.
Right.
And so I think that would be the liberal answer.
It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, yeah. You seem very comfortable with this.
With the liberal
Devika,
thing?
Yes, you seem very comfortable.
I think it's the safest way to say, because you're creating job opportunities there, but you're benefiting because you're probably producing the same thing at a very low cost. And then you're using your skill, using your labor in, as you rightly said, in other avenues where like research and development, innovation. So it's like a win-win.
You don't care about those poor people that lose their jobs in the United States, the poor and lower class workers, that unskilled workers here in the United States?
Of course I do care, but then I'm sure you are creating, but if you look at the bigger picture, job opportunities are being created. It's just not losing.
But these are skilled jobs,
Yes.
that you require education. What about those poor workers that have lost their job on the assembly line? Do you not care about that?
Of course, I do care about. But right now, I'm just speaking from perspective of the three worldviews. This is not my personal.
Yeah. See, if you're running for office
Yes.
for Congress,
Right. Then you of course have to think of those assembly line workers also.
So what would you do? Would you say, okay, we're going to put up tariffs. We're not going to allow imports from China. Would you do that? Would you say that? You'd probably get elected. Would you say that?
Probably find job opportunities for them out here in the country.
Okay.
I'm sure that there will be avenues in the US itself to.
Or maybe train them, right? Give them skills.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They don't have to like stay at that level all their lives. You create opportunities for them, as you rightly said, train them and get them to par with maybe, if not at par, but at least somewhere close to where the skilled workers are. So
that would be an embedded liberal solution, right? The economic nationalist solution, though, would be, no, that's not enough. We're going to put up tariffs. Right. We're going to protect these workers. We're going to keep our jobs here. Yes, because you're, again, looking into your own interests. You're looking into the national interest. Yeah. But the liberal perspective would be, okay, expand your horizon, let the market forces come in play, encourage competition. And it's how different perspectives. So different ways of looking at the world. Yes. So and here's situations. One way. Yeah. Okay. So now, would it be if? Okay, we have this is a totally different question now. Yes. This is the second question. So can you read that one to us, please? Thank you. I'm gonna turn the camera to you. Okay. So the second question is: would it be immoral to use trade market goods in services to help a country like the Philippines get out of national poverty by establishing a work for welfare program for the poor people that live in shanty towns? Ideally, create a program where they can work to afford to build new homes and continue to work in a government subsidy that helps pay for their homes and lifestyle, and the market income generate further programs to eventually alleviate poverty by ridding the shanty towns. Now that's an interesting question. Let me look at this again. So, wow, this covers a lot of ground, doesn't it? This question. Yes. Would it be immoral to use trade market goods? What is that, Devika? How do you say that? What trade market goods? Trade market goods in services to help a country like the Philippines get out of national poverty by establishing a work for welfare program for the poor people that live in shanty towns. Ideally, maybe this question, do we know who gave, maybe it came from the Philippines. I'll look into who sent this question. Ideally, create a program where they can work to afford to build new homes and continue to work in a government subsidy that helps pay for their homes and lifestyle, and the market income generates further programs to eventually alleviate poverty by ridding the shanty town. That's a very clever idea, very interesting. I'm hoping that well, as we know, many of our students go on to hold great positions in top leadership. Maybe this person will be president of the Philippines someday and can
I'm
do
not
this.
sure if the person is watching the video right now, because then we could have probably gotten some more clarity.
Okay, but did it come from the Philippines? Do you know?
I know it
You
doesn't
don't know.
mention now.
Doesn't mention that.
No.
Okay, so would it be immoral to use trade market goods and services to help a country like the Philippines get out of national poverty by establishing a work for welfare program for the poor people that live in shanty towns? So, to me, this if I try to categorize this proposed solution to the problem of poverty, I would say that this is not an extreme liberal position, because this seems to be calling for some government action, but at the same time, it seems that it's not an economic nationalist solution, because it doesn't seem to be calling for interfering with market forces. To me, I would categorize this as an embedded liberal solution to the problem of poverty in the Philippines, because it's saying maybe we get people that are living in poverty. This is kind of like this idea, we do something specifically for those people, and see that this would be government intervention in the short term, get them out of poverty, a program where they temporarily have some government assistance, but then it doesn't say here anything about retraining or something like this, but eventually they are able to pay for their own homes, and there's market income generated. And so this seems to me kind of a liberal, embedded liberal, government interfering just temporarily.
Right.
These are people that the market mechanism had a flaw. They didn't solve the poverty problem. So the government will step in temporarily, do something, but then get these people, pull them into the market economy, pull them out of the informal sector, which means that they just maybe earn cash here and there, selling stuff on the street, or they don't pay taxes. So you pull them into the market economy. Now they're paying taxes. Income is generated from that. And these people now, the government short-term intervention makes the market economy work even more effectively.
Yes.
So that would be consistent with an embedded liberal point of view that I seem to see, I think, is what's represented by that comment.
But I hope maybe the student who's posted this
will follow up and
will follow up and see the video, and if there's anything further that they would like to elaborate on this, in case if we've not answered the question, then we can always.
You should be in the picture here, Devika. Say, ask the student, please.
Yes, so I hope we've answered your question, but if not, please feel free to comment on this on the discussion board, and we'll definitely follow up with understanding your question more and then answering it accordingly.
Yeah. So because this is very but I think you see how you can look at pretty much any proposed government action or policy or anything that's happening in the world and explain it from each one of these worldviews. And so I'm saying, look, I see this proposed solution to the problem of poverty in the Philippines. I'm looking at it from an embedded liberal. I see it as an embedded liberal proposed solution here.
But the nationalist, on the other hand, would probably not may still be fine with the government intervening, but somebody from outside coming in may not be
right.
May not go well with the nationalists. They wouldn't want somebody from the outside to get into their country matters and intervene. So so that is something that an economic nationalist would not.
That's right. An economic nationalist would say, hey, there's no problem with capitalism, right? There's no problem with capitalism itself. We just need to have the proper kind of government interference with the market economy, not getting rid of the market economy, but just interfering enough that our national interests are promoted. So that might mean that an economic nationalist would say, let's put up very high taxes on imports into the Philippines to promote the development of new industries, national industries producing for local consumption, import substitution industrialization policies in the Philippines to block imports of cheap goods from other countries so that we have to make them locally.
Yes.
And consumers locally substitute locally made things for things that they used to import. And through that import substitution, we will create new industries. So it's import substitution industrialization is a common economic nationalist strategy that interferes with the market forces to promote national development. And so that would be consistent with an economic nationalist view. So you notice that this proposed solution here isn't talking about anything like that.
No.
So this to me is, they're not talking about interfering with trade, putting up barriers to trade, just some limited government intervention, a program to get people back into the market economy and then
basically stabilize, get them to a stable platform and then take a step back.
Yeah. Do we have anyone joining us today?
No, these are the two questions that have
these are the two questions? Yeah.
Yes.
So,
but the discussion forum is, I'm sure students will watch this video is going to get recorded and the link will be there for all students to watch it later.
Okay.
So feel free to kind of post in any other questions that you may have. Mary and I will be monitoring the discussion board, but if there's something that specifically they would want to hear from you.
So Mary and Devika are constantly monitoring. They pounce on the question. They give you an immediate response, very quick. And then I step in once in a while here and there. And so this ensures quick responsiveness to our customers.
Absolutely.
And so they are so knowledgeable and smart, and you can see so it's nice to get a response from Devika.
Yes.
And Mary is also knowledgeable about all this as well.
Absolutely. And we'll probably have another live session built in with you, maybe
sure.
sometime later on, in case if that's there, students will be informed about it. So those who were not able to come in live today, and maybe have some questions ready for you for
sounds good.
The other live session.
Yeah, let's do it again. That'd be great. So, well, thank you everyone for watching this. If you're watching this now, I hope this was useful, and feel free to post any questions or comments on the discussion board.
Yes.
We'll make sure to answer them.
Yes, and just utilize all that you can of Dr. Nelson's expertise. He's a specialist in this subject. I am personally I feel absolutely honored to be doing this under his guidance. I remember I took States and Market in the first semester, and I was really, really nervous. This was a very new subject for me. I was not somebody who was interested in what's happening around the world, and we just had 10 sessions to complete the entire course, and it's not something that can get completed because everything is changing in the world every day. And then I was like, okay, I took it as a challenge. Fine, I will assist Dr. Nelson and maybe kind of hone on my knowledge about this subject. And I completely see myself at a different platform right now. What I was last year in fall, in August, when I was studying States and Market, and what I have right now is a different level altogether.
Wow, wow. If we're going to make a commercial, we're going to cut that part out and make a commercial.
Yes,
for States and Markets.
So please utilize these 6 weeks to go through all the recorded lectures. Some articles that have been handpicked by the professor himself. They're very interesting articles, and you can read those articles and apply all the 3 different worldviews. The crux of this entire course is the 3 worldviews. So I think week 1, in a way, is very important.
Crucial.
Yes, extremely crucial, because once you have an understanding of the 3 worldviews, the rest of the weeks will fall in place, because you will see yourself, you will find yourself relating those worldviews to every topic that you read or every discussion topic that you see on the board. So participate in the we encourage you to participate on the discussion.
Right. Yes. And you will get answers very quickly. And
yes, September 8th, I believe, is the deadline for verifying.
Yes.
So please keep that in mind. Obviously, you have another week or so to kind of go and enroll yourself and become a verified student.
I think that's you get the full experience, the full benefit of the course.
Absolutely.
If you verify.
Yes,
So
and we'll be there through the course of the journey. So
yeah,
feel free
it's
to throw in any questions that you have.
all right. Well, thank you so much for joining again today, Devika, and thanks anyone for watching this. And please post any more questions on the discussion board, and we'll get them answered. All right. Well, I'm gonna end our broadcast now. Any last comment or?
And it's a long weekend in the US.
Yes, a holiday weekend.
Yes, it's a
coming
holiday
up.
weekend. So obviously we kind of answer everything, but if there are very technical related queries that they may have, so and if you don't get a prompt reply, so just to inform you all that it's a holiday in the US, so people resume on Tuesday next week. So don't get worried. Your questions, your queries are being read, and they'll be answered well in time.
Okay, and then we'll wrap it up. So thank you.
Thank you for joining.
We're gonna hit stop.
Yes.
And that'll be